Hey guys, on this episode of Chargeback Forward, Puppeteer for the PlayStation 3. So, I'm just going to cut to the chase with Puppeteer. It is an amazing game. If you own a PlayStation 3, if you like side-scrolling platform games, if you like stuff that's funny and cute and polished production value and great replay value, this is the game for you. Recently it showed up on PlayStation Plus's Instant Collection, but that's probably over by now. But regardless, it is worth the money, whether it's the digital or the physical version. Get on that. Puppeteer is an underappreciated classic. It came out pretty much around the time that the next generation consoles came out, and it really sucks because more people need to play this game. Luckily, it was released on the PlayStation Plus's Instant Collection a couple of months ago, I think. It probably still isn't there anymore, so you would have to pay for it, but that doesn't matter because it is an amazing game. This is a game that defines the PlayStation 3 in my eyes. It is part of the handful of games that you absolutely have to play and own. So let's get into it. So the deal with Puppeteer, it's very unconventional, and it's actually an original idea for a video game for a change, even though it works in the confines of a platformer. So viewing the game as you're playing it, obviously you're playing the game, but you're also viewing it as a spectator in a theater. That's right. So the screen is like bordered by drapes that draw back at the beginning of a stage and then close at the end of it. You're in the audience, and it's amazing as you're listening, as you're playing the game, because you're listening to the audience around you. They're laughing at jokes that the narrator says, or the funny things that happen on screen, or they're gasping, or they're oohing and aahing, or they're applauding you when you do something legit. Essentially, Puppeteer is based off of like Japanese puppet theater. Now, that's something I had to look into because when I first was playing it, I thought for sure it was a mashup between like Disney's golden years and the best of Broadway musicals. Put those two together and then add psychedelic drugs, because that's what it felt like, because there's so vibrant, so much going on, and not in a bad way, not in like a Star Wars prequels kind of way, but just the amount of detail and love that went into this game. Everything on screen is the stage. So whether it's houses or trees or clouds or big characters, whatever it is, everything is fake. And it's held there by strings or supported by springs, or if it's something that moves, you can kind of see hidden a bit, but purposely, not completely. You can see cogs that turn to make things happen. This is brilliant. It's absolutely breathtaking. This is a game that's actually pretty good in 3D as well. For me, I didn't really go that route because I played most of it before I got a new TV that had 3D, so at that point I just kind of like checked it out and went through. But if you're like a nut for 3D games, this is a great example. So I don't want to give too much away about the story, but I will say this: the main character, his name's Kuduro. He's essentially a boy that got abducted, so to speak, and was turned into a puppet and promptly had his head removed. So you go through the game as Kuduro trying to find your head so you can turn back into a boy. And there's dozens of heads, and it's the coolest thing about these heads is when you can hold 3 heads at a time, and there's dozens upon dozens and dozens of heads, and each one of them is unique. They all have a specific animation for them, and which are usually pretty funny. And the whole point of these different heads is, if you stand in a particular spot, somewhere on the screen there'll be like a kind of like a distorted, subtle, but most of the times large icon of your head. So for example, if you have a gun head, you'll see a picture and somewhere in the background, and it's that revolver. And so where you're standing, if that's visible, that means you can press up on the D-pad. Kuduro does his little dance, and then that has an effect on the stage, whether it's unlocking a bonus stage, whether it's making a boss fight easier, whether it's unlocking an alternate path. And sometimes it's just as simple as you see something happen in the background. Haha, funny, right? But so much care went into this. It's kind of like, I remember playing Earthworm Jim on Sega CD, and I would sit there and I put the controller down and I would watch Earthworm Jim go through all of his kind of idle animations. So Puppeteer reminds me of that, but in the context of you actually pressing up. So I think there could be around 100 heads, I could be mistaken, but you think about that, that's 100 unique sets of animations just for that little jig, whether it's a dance or it's some kind of slapstick comedy. I really enjoyed that aspect of the game. Another thing I want to talk about in terms of how it was presented, the fact that it's on a stage in a theater, is there's so many beautiful tableaus because everything is framed perfectly, and it's really cool how they did that. The drapes are around, they border the screen, and they're closed at the beginning of the stage and they draw open when you start playing, and then when the stage is over they close up. So, but there's just so much visual, oh god, I can't believe I'm going to say this, poetry? And in everything they did. This is probably one of the most visually pleasing games I have ever played. Now it's funny because you can hear the audience all through the game, you never see them, but they react to whatever you do. They clap, they whistle, they laugh, they gasp, they cheer, all sorts of things. And it's so cool because it's kind of like, they're rooting the main character on. And they're laughing when funny things happen. They laugh when, there's dialogue. I failed to mention, but you have a little sidekick. And this is actually a pretty good game mechanic that I need to get out of the way. So when Puppeteer was initially announced, everybody thought it was going to be a game that you needed the PlayStation Move to control, however that came into being. But at the end of the day, when it was released, you control Kuduro with the DualShock, and you could either use your partner and you can kind of guide them around the screen, and the purpose of that is you guide them around the screen, you press a button, and you'll hit things, kind of like unleashing stars or whatever the collectible is, or breaking something to expose something. And that can be done all fine and dandy with one player, but one of the only cool things I've ever seen a Move controller do, and probably the best place for a Move controller outside of a shooting game, is being able to control this secondary character and help out the first character in the quest. So it's kind of a unique two-player experience. But I can't stop thinking about the audience. Even when you pause the game, you'll hear people coughing and sneezing and rummaging around. Yet again, another amazing detail of what makes this game feel like an experience, an experience of you going and not only being whisked away to this magical land, which is the moon, but also this weird duality of being the participant, playing as Kuduro, but at the same time being an observer, which is really cool, because usually if you play games and you have friends over, you play they observe, or whoever's playing, whatever. But in this, you feel this dual role, and I found that, again, another breath of fresh air, especially in a platform game. Platforming's been around forever, so to see innovation in a game like that, and innovation that works as opposed to innovation for the sake of innovation, great stuff. So the narrator, Professor G, whatever he's called, whatever. Anyways, he sets everything up for the audience. He'll set up the beginning of every stage. Even before you select the stage, he says something about it, and then when you go in, he narrates the cutscene. Pretty much everything is done in engine. And he'll even talk, he'll narrate as you're playing the game. And so Kuduro doesn't say anything, but your sidekick, the moon fairy princess, whatever, her and the narrator always have this back and forth, and it's pretty funny because they'll be talking about things. The narrator will mention something that the audience laughs at because it's relatable to them in reality, but the characters in the story don't have a basis for what the joke is. So it's kind of like it falls as a dud on them, but it works from the audience perspective. There's a lot of very sly, sometimes it's a little obvious, sometimes it's a little more subtle pop culture references. You have wrestling references, Lost in Space, the old TV show and the movie, Mission Impossible. Again, I don't want to give everything away, so I'll just kind of leave it as that. There's cool little things for you to kind of to see and enjoy while you're playing the game. Whenever you unlock a bonus stage, and there's a bonus stage for every single stage in the game, you can go into the menus after and you can replay them. Okay, some of them you pretty much get one shot to play it, and I think I cleared 3 first time around in the entire game. So the fact that you can go back in and play them and replay them until you beat them is another welcome addition. One of the other things that's in the menu system is every time you beat an act, so basically an act is broken into 3 parts. So when you beat the act, you unlock a fairy tale, which is a book. The pages turn, little bit of animation, and it's narrated as well. So pretty dark stuff. I mean, hey, like, even though they didn't overtly say it, everything that they were saying in this one fairy tale led to my favorite character in the entire game, whose name is Gaff, and he's a pirate, but I like to refer to him as Gaff the Rapist. So guys, in closing, this is probably one of the best games I've played in a long time, and being a kid of the 8-bit and 16-bit days, to be able to play a platformer in 2014, even though it was released in 2013, I know, but to play a modern day platformer like this is an absolute must. This is pretty much a system seller. If I didn't have a PlayStation 3 and I got a whiff of this, I would go out and buy one. So guys, what did you think of Puppeteer? Did you get a chance to play it? If so, comment below. If not, why the hell not? Thanks as always to ANC Games for providing me a copy of the game for review before it came out on Instant Game Collection. Comment, follow me on Twitter and all that shit. Looking forward to seeing you guys soon.